Let's now do the animation where we can do a wheelie while we are accelerating. So as a reminder, this is how it should look like eventually. After we exceed a certain speed, we can click on W to do this animation. So let's do it. I am also going to do it in a separate file. So in here in scripts, I'm going to create a file for it. And I'm going to import it here in our index. And let's maybe close the files that we don't need here. And in here, we're going to need some DOM elements, and we also need our street animation. So here I'm importing my street animation, and I am importing my scooter so that we can animate it, and also the shadow. We're going to animate the shadow since when we do this wheelie, the shadow is going to maybe change a little bit in its scale. And now I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call it wheelie. Just an empty function for now, and then I'm going to call this function when we press on the W button. So let's add an event listener on our window, key down, and in our callback function in here, let's check if the event.key is equals to either W, lowercase or uppercase. In this case, we're going to call our wheelie function, right? So now what are we going to do in this function? We're going to create a simple animation in the elements transform. So what are we going to transform? Let's actually do it here in the browser first, in our scooter. Let's add a transform, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of a translation in the positive X direction of, let's say, maybe 15%. And then we're going to rotate by maybe negative 20 degrees. However, we need the anchor point of our rotation not to be the center of the scooter, however, to be the bottom left here, this point. We need the rotation to be anchored at this point, right? So in addition to this, we're going to add a transform origin, and we're going to make it bottom left, like so. And then we are going to need to maybe shift it down a little bit by adding some translate Y. And let's try maybe around here 11% would look fine. So we're going to animate our transform to this value. And let's also add this transform origin in our scooter here in the CSS, right? I'm going to copy this, and let's do our animation. So in this wheelie function, first of all, before doing anything, let's do some checks first. Let's check that our street animation or any of our animations is paused by checking the play state. If our street animation is paused, it means that all of our animations are paused. So if it's not running, we're going to return. And also we need to only allow this wheelie only at a certain speed. So at low speeds, maybe we cannot do that. So I'm going to add another check here to check for playback rate. And maybe let's check if it's maybe less than 4 or something. We are also going to return. Otherwise, we're going to animate our scooter to animate, and we're going to add our keyframes. So let's add our first keyframe, and let's make it so that our translate X is 0, our rotate is 0, and also translate Y is 0. However, in the next keyframe, I'm going to paste the value that we copied from the browser, like so. And we don't need this semicolon. And then I'm going to repeat this. And then I'm going to add another one to reset our transform again to 0, 0, 0. Why? Because I need this state to stay for a little bit. So we're going to go from this to this. And then we're going to stay at this state for a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an offset here. And maybe let's add 0.07 here. So this means that we are going to go from here to here at 7% of our duration. And then we need to stay in this state until, let's say, maybe 98% of our duration. And then the scooter is going to fall down again to its original position from 98% to 100%. So this state should be taking the most time here while you are doing our animation. And then I'm going to add our duration. Let's say this is going to take maybe 4 seconds. And we need to do one iteration, only one iteration. So iterations 1. And let's also add some easing for this. I'm thinking maybe easing out would be suitable for this. And just to try that, I'm going to remove the checks that we're doing here so that we can try it without having to accelerate. So I'm going to click on W, and looks like we have maybe an error. Invalid keyframe, let's take a look. Oh, sorry, we don't need to have the transform here. Let's try again. And as you can see, we are having something, and it's looking good so far. One thing that I would like to maybe add is when we fall back down, I would like to have some sort of a bouncing effect. And to do that, instead of using easing out, I'm still going to use that. However, for this last animation, when we go from here to here, which means when the scooter is going from the wheelie position back to its original position, I'm going to change the easing, and I'm going to give it a cubic Bezier function with a negative value here, so that we can have some sort of a bouncing effect. If we take a look now, as you can see, we had a little bit of a bouncing effect when we fell back down. Now, one problem that we are going to face is that if we click on W multiple times, as you can see, this is going to happen. So we only need to allow doing a wheelie once at a time, so we cannot click multiple times to repeat the animation. If the animation is already happening, we don't need it to happen again. So to do that, one thing that we can do in our animations is that we can give it an ID. So I'm going to give it an ID here of wheelie. And if we maybe try and console log our animations here. So let's console log the animations on the scooter. And when we do so, the first time we do not have a wheelie animation. However, the second time we already have one running, so we got something in this array. And this something is our wheelie animation, the first one, and it has an ID of wheelie. So what we can do is we can check if in our scooter animations we already have a wheelie animation happening. We're not going to do anything, we're going to return. So similar to here, let's get this back. And let's add this condition. Let's add an OR here. And in our animations array, let's find an animation with an ID of wheelie. If we have one, we are also going to return. And this way let's also remove these just so we can try. This way we can only do our animation once at a time. If we click multiple times, nothing is going to happen until this one finishes, and then we can click again. Alright, I think we are almost done. One thing that I would like to add is adding an animation to our shadow. So when we do a wheelie, probably this shadow, the shape of this shadow is going to change as we are doing this. So I'm going to paste this one. I'm not going to do it from scratch. It's pretty similar to what we have already done. So in our shadow, I'm going to animate the scale and the rotation, and I'm also using the same offsets here the same easing and the same duration as well, so that everything is going to happen at the same time. And if we try now, as you can see, our shadow scales a little bit and also translates with our scooter. And I think that should do it for our animation. Hopefully we haven't missed anything. We just need to get these conditions back, and let's try it now while we are accelerating. So now we should only be able to do this, of course, if our animation is running, and also if our speed or our playback rate is larger than 4. And remember, we are multiplying the playback rate times 8, so that should correspond to 32 kilometers per hour. So let's try. And I'm pressing now, nothing is happening. I'm accelerating again, and if we pass 32 kilometers per hour, we can do this animation. And everything should be fine. That's it for this video. Let's finally, in the next video, add some sound effects.